There is something genuinely satisfying about watching dividends land in your account. It feels like getting a bunch of little paychecks you did not have to work for. But then that nagging question always shows up, does not it? How much of this is the CRA going to take? It is honestly one of the questions I get asked the most, especially from folks building up dividend stocks and ETFs. So today, let us clear it all up together, simply and honestly. How your dividends actually get taxed in Canada, why the number is often a lot friendlier than you expect, the sneaky trap that can quietly cost you even when your tax bill looks small, and the one trick that decides how much of your money you get to keep. Stick with me because that last part is where a lot of Canadians accidentally leave money on the table. So let us start with the basics because Canada actually treats different kinds of investment income very differently, and that matters. There are really four things to know about: Canadian dividends, foreign dividends, interest, and capital gains. Let me take them one at a time. First, dividends from Canadian companies. These get special favorable treatment through something called the dividend tax credit. Now, the mechanics are a little quirky. The government first grosses up your dividend, meaning they bump up the amount on paper, and then they hand you a credit that more than makes up for it. The end result is what matters. Eligible Canadian dividends are taxed at a much lower rate than regular employment income. In fact, if your overall income is low, the tax on eligible Canadian dividends can be close to zero. That is not a typo. Canada genuinely rewards you for owning a piece of Canadian companies. Second, foreign dividends, and the big one here is US dividends. These do not get that friendly dividend tax credit because the credit is only for Canadian companies. So dividends from US stocks are taxed just like regular income at your full marginal rate. And on top of that, the US government takes a 15% withholding tax before the money even reaches you. Hold that thought, because where you hold those US stocks changes everything, and I will come back to it. Third, interest from things like savings accounts, GICs, and bonds. This is the least tax-friendly of all. Interest is taxed as regular income at your full marginal rate with no break whatsoever. So $1 of interest costs you more in tax than $1 of Canadian dividends. Good to know when you're deciding what to hold where. And fourth, capital gains, which is the profit when you sell an investment for more than you paid. Right now, only a portion of a capital gain is actually taxable, so gains get fairly gentle treatment too. You are not taxed on the whole profit, just a part of it, at your marginal rate. As it stands, only half of a capital gain is taxable. There was talk of raising that, but it was set aside, so for now the half rule still holds. Always worth double-checking though, because this is exactly the kind of thing governments love to tinker with. Okay, so now the big question everybody actually wants answered. If your dividends get large, are you about to get hammered? Honestly, usually not, and let me show you why with an example. Picture someone who is retired and living mostly off eligible Canadian dividends with little or no other income. Thanks to that dividend tax credit we talked about, they can receive a surprisingly large amount of Canadian dividend income and pay very little tax on it, sometimes almost none at all. It genuinely catches people off guard. To put a rough number on it, in many provinces, someone with no other income can receive somewhere in the ballpark of $50,000 a year in eligible Canadian dividends and pay little to no federal tax on it. The exact figure depends on your province and the rules of the day, but the point stands, it is far friendlier than most people fear. And do not stress about the paperwork either. Your brokerage sends you a tax slip called a T5 each year with the numbers already filled in, so you are not sitting there doing complicated math yourself. When Canadian dividends are your main income and your total income is modest, our system is remarkably kind. So please, do not let a fear of tax scare you away from building a dividend income. For a lot of people, it is one of the most tax-efficient ways to get paid that exists. But, and there is always a but, let me show you the other side so you have got the full picture. It changes when those dividends sit on top of a good salary, because then they stack onto your income and get taxed at your higher marginal rate, and the friendly treatment shrinks. And here is the sneaky trap that almost nobody warns you about. Remember how Canadian dividends get grossed up on paper? Well, that grossed up, inflated number is what the government uses to measure your income for certain benefits. So even though you paid very little actual tax, your reported income looks bigger than it really is. And that inflated number can push a retiree over the line for the OAS clawback, where the government starts taking back your old age security. So a big pile of Canadian dividends in a regular account can quietly cost you benefits, even while your tax bill looks tiny. That one surprises a lot of people, and it is exactly why the next part matters so much. So here is the good part, the fix, and this is the trick that separates people who keep their money from people who hand it over. It is called asset location. It just means putting the right investment in the right account. Let me make it simple. Your TFSA and your RRSP shelter everything inside them, so the goal is to use them wisely. For US dividend stocks, the RRSP is often the best home. Because of a tax treaty, the US does not take that 15% withholding tax on US stocks held in an RRSP. Hold those same US stocks in a TFSA, though, and you do get hit with the 15% and you cannot get it back. So US dividends generally love an RRSP. Interest-paying stuff like bonds and GICs is taxed at the highest rate, so it is a great candidate to tuck inside a registered account too. And your Canadian dividend payers are the most tax-efficient to hold in a regular, non-registered account because that dividend tax credit does so much of the work for you. Match the investment to the account, and you can seriously cut the tax you pay completely legally. So here is the quick cheat sheet to remember. US dividend payers, put them in your RRSP, bonds, GICs, and anything paying interest, shelter those in a registered account too, since they get taxed the hardest. Canadian dividend stocks are the most comfortable to hold in a non-registered account, thanks to that credit. And your high-growth investments, the ones you're hoping will produce big capital gains, those really shine inside a TFSA, where the gains come out completely tax-free. Get that lineup right, and you are already miles ahead of most investors. And of course, the simplest move of all is this. Fill up your TFSA and your RRSP first. Inside a TFSA, your Canadian dividends, your capital gains, and your interest are all completely tax-free and none of it counts as income, so it will not mess with your benefits either. Every dollar of investment income you can move inside those accounts is a dollar the CRA stops touching. Most people who stress about investment tax simply have not sheltered their money yet. Do that, and a huge chunk of the worry just disappears. And one more tip if you are a part of a couple, because Canada taxes each of us as individuals, it often pays to have the lower earning partner hold more of the taxable investments so that income lands in a lower bracket. And in retirement, you can split certain pension income between the two of you to even things out. These little moves quietly add up to real money over the years. So let me pull it all together for you. In Canada, Canadian dividends get friendly treatment thanks to the dividend tax credit, and if they are your main income, they can be taxed very lightly. US dividends are taxed like regular income and face a withholding tax, interest is the least tax-friendly, and capital gains are only partly taxable. The real pain shows up when investment income piles on top of a salary, and watch out for that gross up quietly inflating your income and threatening your OAS. And the answer to almost all of it is to shelter your money in a TFSA and RRSP and to practice good asset location, putting US dividends in the RRSP and keeping your Canadian dividend payers tax efficient. Do that, and you keep far more of what your money earns. Just remember these rules can change and vary by province, so check the current numbers before you rely on them. Alright, that is dividend tax in Canada, hopefully a whole lot less scary now that you have got the full picture. If this made it click for you, give it a like so it reaches the next nervous investor, subscribe if you want the rest of this stuff explained the same simple way, and if your investments are sitting outside a TFSA or in the wrong account, that is your little project for this week. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you soon.